Jerome Bruner was born in New York, New York in 1915. Bruner's father, a watch manufacturer, died when Bruner was 12 years old. Bruner studied at Duke and then at Harvard, where he received his doctorate in psychology in 1941. From 1960 to 1972, he directed the university's Center for Cognitive Studies. He left Harvard to become professor of experimental psychology at the University of Oxford from 1972 to 1980. He then became concurrently a professor at the New School for Social Research in New York City and a fellow at the New York Institute for the Humanities, New York University. Bruner is a distinguished educator and psychologist. His work on perception, learning, memory, and cognition in young children has influenced the American educational system. He introduced Piaget's concept of developmental stages of cognition into the classroom. When Bruner entered the field of psychology, it was roughly divided between the study of perception and that of learning. The first was mentalistic and subjective, while the second was behavioristic and objective. At Harvard, the psychology department was dominated by behaviorists who followed a research program called psychophysics. According to Britannica.com, after World War II, countries like Russia and China were surpassing America in testing results, college graduates, and economical growth. Returning veterans wanted their children to get the best education possible. Old standards of teaching became archaic, and new theories were needed to help raise the standards of education in America. Technology produced the television, movie cameras, and projectors that were affordable for the home and school. For more than half a century, Bruner has insisted on the place of meaning in any psychological study of human activity and the human psyche. This fundamentally interpretive perspective is at the heart of the cognitive revolution that he played a pivotal part in mounting in the late 1950s. His story of what inspired such a revolution is that psychology during this period was dominated by a behaviorism built on a stimulus-response theory of human action. This meaning-centered psychology Bruner and his colleagues proposed was meant as a counter to this reductionist framework, according to Raylan. Cognitive theories in the 1960s were quite fragmented. There was no center and there was a lack of cohesion. The theories were full of rhetoric and became unexportable. John B. Watson was the first American psychologist to use Pavlov's ideas. Like Thorndike, he was originally involved in animal research, but later became involved in the study of human behavior. Watson believed that humans are born with a few reflexes and the emotional reactions of love and rage. All other behavior is established through stimulus-response associations through conditioning. According to Bruner, in 1956, Bloom and his colleagues began development of a taxonomy called Bloom's Cognitive Taxonomy, which consists of knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. According to Bruner, in 1962, Robert Major wrote Preparing Instructional Objectives, which prompted interest and use of behavioral objectives among educators. Gagne and Briggs, who also had backgrounds in military and industrial psychology, developed a set of instructions for writing objectives that is based on Major's work. According to Bruner in 1966, his theory is based upon the study of cognition. A major theme in this theory is that learning is an active process in which learners construct new ideas or concepts based upon their current and past knowledge. Cognitive structures are used to provide meaning and organization to experiences and allow the individual to go beyond the information given. According to Bruner, the instructor should try and encourage students to construct hypotheses, make decisions, and discover principles by themselves. The instructor's task is to translate information to be learned into a format that is appropriate to the learner's current state of understanding, and organize it in a spiral manner so that the student continually builds upon what they have learned. According to Bruner, he states that a theory of instruction should address the following two aspects. 1. The most effective sequences in which to present material, and 2. The ways in which a body of knowledge can be structured so that it can be most readily grasped by a learner. Bruner's constructivist theory can be applied to instruction by applying the following principles. 1. Instruction must be concerned with the experiences and contexts that make the student willing and able to learn, or readiness. 2. Instruction must be structured so that it can be easily grasped by the student, the spiral organization. And 3. Instruction should be designed to facilitate extrapolation and fill in the gaps which goes beyond the information that is given and presented. One of Bruner's theory weaknesses is that rule-governed conceptual theories correctly classify many simple, naturally occurring phenomena, but they have difficulty developing clear categorizations or abstract concepts such as wisdom, justice, and equality, which is sometimes difficult for young students to grasp. Unfortunately, most learners find it difficult to distinguish these distinctions because we have learned only to categorize in certain contexts of the act itself. More difficult rules are just more difficult to learn. According to Bruner in 1985, a psychologist cannot alone construct a theory of how to assist cognitive development and cannot alone learn how to enrich and amplify the powers of a growing human mind. The task belongs to the whole intellectual community. Some strengths of Bruner's theory are that most individuals quickly formulate hypotheses about relevant attributes and choose stimuli accordingly. Many individuals adopt the conservative focusing strategy, the focus gambling, or the scanning strategy suggested by Weltman. According to Bruni and Schra, individuals solve concept identification problems by trying to discover the rules relating to the concept attributes. Brunet suggests that Bruner focused on concept identification. Most individuals quickly formulate hypotheses about relevant attributes and choose stimuli accordingly by adopting conservative concepts. Bandura's social learning theory emphasizes the importance of observing and modeling the behaviors, attitudes, and emotional reactions of others, while Bruner uses conceptual and practical approaches from constructivist thought, borrowing on such tools as tacit knowledge, critical reflection, and mastery, according to Bruner. In comparing Bruner to Bandura, Bandura's underlying observational learning processes are attention, retention, including cognitive organization and motor rehearsal, motor reproduction, including physical capabilities, self-observation of reproduction, and accuracy of feedback, motivation, including external and self-reinforcement, and observer characteristics, such as sensory capacities, arousal level, perceptual set, and past reinforcement. Bruner's theoretical structures can be compared to problematic methods for acquiring concepts. Very similar to Piaget's work, Bruner's theory requires a structural analysis of the process variables, such as those used in acquiring information, rather than establishing connections for previous knowledge. Bruner insists that the most important type of learning is discovery learning, which he meant to be using problem-solving techniques for acquiring knowledge, 1960. According to Mattingly, Throop, and Jason, Bruner's work has been enormously influential in the subfields of cultural psychology and psychological anthropology, especially because of his important contributions to our understanding of the intimate relationship between culture and mind. Is there a current transition between Bruner and technology? Computers process information in a similar fashion to how cognitive scientists believe humans process information by receiving, storing, and retrieving. Receiving, storing, and retrieving information makes a possibility of programming a computer to think like a person, that is, artificial intelligence. Bruner emphasized 4 characteristics of effective instruction which emerged from his theoretical constructs, the first 3 of which can be associated with computer-based instruction and instructional technology. Personalized instruction should relate to learners' predisposition and facilitate interest toward learning. Content structure. Content should be structured so that it can be most easily grasped by the learner. And sequencing. Sequencing is an important aspect for the presentation of material. In applying the theory application to teaching past, present, and future, I would hope that I could adapt many ideas of the cognitive theorists to my teaching, which I think I have in the past plus 35 years. There isn't just one theory, though, that can be used to teach every new concept, skill, and idea. However, Bruner provides the most positive guide for my work with elementary children. I also followed his precept in my past teaching that Bruner suggested that children should be taught to use language to communicate in their educational process, which if you teach in an elementary school, you know this is true. I would like to help my students try to discover the rules that relate to the concept attributes of music and technology. I think Bruner's style will help my students memorize chords, fingerings, and how to justify the dynamics. It could not, however, help them justify why the compositions were written, for whom, and how the sacrifices made in the lives of the professional musicians of various eras were changed by the history and culture of the times. I would have to base my choice of cognitive learning theories on the nature of the learning task at hand. This would include my choice of learning accomplishments. If I could make sure that the students retained what I was teaching, if the learning situation was student-owned and real-world, and if the learning task was general or if it was specific. Inventions of musical equipment such as MIDI computer interfaces with keyboards, MP3 players, CD and DVD players and recorders, electronic band and orchestral instruments, music readers for the orchestra, computer-generated lesson software, smartboards, and smartphones have given general music teachers the opportunities to inspire student participation so that learning goals can be approached with interactive interfaces that are stimulating and culturally pertinent.